Welcome. You are listening to the Louis Minor Show. I'm your host, Commissioner Louis Minor. Today is February 12th, 2023, and let's get started. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, but let's bring up the agenda for the Bell County Commissioners Court, February 13th, 2023. First item on the agenda is the invocation. Second item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Consent agenda items are as followed: personnel, budget amendments, claims, accounts payable, payroll, restitution, jury pay. Item 4, consider relocation of the Confederate statue to museum storage and replace it with the police memorial statue with private funds. Item 5, county engineering. Consider and approve a final plat of Stone Summit number 7, being a 0.54 acre Lot 1, Block 1 subdivision located in Bell County, Precinct 3. And then we have county judge and commissioner announcements. Now for the workshop later on in the afternoon. On the morning, directly after the commissioners meeting, we'll have a workshop, staff workshop. Each staff member will give updates, capital improvement updates. And then in the afternoon, we'll have 2 items on the agenda: discuss amending the order providing for the levy and collection of a 2% hotel occupancy tax, and B, discuss subdivision regulation fee. And we'll get into both of those here momentarily. If y'all been following the podcast, you know both of these items are things that I've introduced, and we will get into it here in a little bit. Then 2 things on next week. The Commissioners Court will be attending the V.G. Young Institute of County Government 65th Annual School for County Commissioners Court. That'll be in Bryan, Texas next week. Also next week on Monday, there's not going to be any Commissioners Court because that is President's Day. And then the following day, which we would have had court, we are going to be at the V.G. Young Institute for training. So let's just talk about real quick a couple of things happening around the state and the state legislature. This week, Governor Abbott released a memo. His chief of staff released a memo telling state agencies to stop considering diversity in hiring. State agencies obviously include that, but also public universities. That just really rubbed me the wrong way. You know, seems like we're going backwards in time, that these elected leaders are getting bolder and bringing up this type of nonsense. You know, far too long, people of color, women, they've been set aside, overlooked for positions of power, upper levels of business and in government, public universities, even ISDs. But, you know, some of these policies were meant to, you know, kind of weed past some of those deep-rooted and could be unknown prejudice and bias that we all have. I mean, everyone has, you know, prejudice and bias that, you know, you grew up with, that you may or may not be fully aware of. So diversity, inclusion, affirmative action, all these programs were ways to kind of get a second look, get a second glance, you know, move your way up in the hiring processes. But this attack on classified as DEI initiatives really, really concerning to me, and so we'll see how that trickles down into the county level. But I know anytime I have the ability to make a decision on the hiring of anyone, that's definitely something I want to make sure that not only are people of color and women, minorities, that they're included in the selection process, at least to be looked at, that we make a good faith effort to have a government that looks like the place that we live in. Bell County is diverse, Killeen is diverse, and our government should be a representation of that diversity. The next thing that I wanted to mention was our state representative for House District 54 here in Killeen, Representative Brad Buckley, was appointed this week as chairman of the House Public Education Committee. So that committee is in charge of all of the public schools, and that's going to put Killeen, our representative, smack dab in this attempt by the governor and the lieutenant governor to defund public schools by creating educational savings accounts. So, from my understanding, what this is going to do is it's going to give X number of dollars per student, and then the parent can take that child, their child, to any school. I don't know if they really mentioned any other public schools, but it seems like it's geared more as an attempt to allow charter and private schools for taxpayer dollars to go to those. And that is definitely something that I'm opposed to. I would imagine a lot of people in our district and the precinct is opposed to. Killeen ISD is a major employer here in the city of Killeen. So I would imagine any attempt to take funds away from Killeen ISD or any school in the district would be looked at negatively. So I've never heard Representative Buckley comment if he's for that school voucher system that's being proposed. It's been proposed for quite some time, but now it seems like there's a big push to get this through. And I was talking to some people this week. I was at an NAACP event, and I kind of mentioned that to them that, hey, we need to, let Representative Buckley know how we stand. We're not for defunding our public school systems. And they mentioned something that I found interesting. They said that they like Brad Buckley and he's a good guy, and all those things are true. I'm not, I like Brad as well. He's a good guy. Always has a smile on his face. Good politician. But the way that he votes on things in line with the party are bad for Texas, and they're bad for our district, our precinct, for the county. And it kind of reminded me of something that I remember reading about. You know, this county, this area has been in Republican dominated control for decades. And just that person's comments about Dr. Buckley, like I said, which he's a good guy, but the way that he votes is against our interest. And it just reminded me of this. It's called Stockholm Syndrome. You may or may not know the term, but it's a coping mechanism to a captive or abusive situations. And it's people developing positive feelings towards their captors, their abusers over time. So, you know, that's more like in the, you know, you hear that term when you're being kidnapped or in abusive relationship type of things. So, you know, I liken that just because we haven't had other options. We haven't had other leadership here in the county. It's been primarily Republican controlled, that people say, okay, well, I guess this is what I have to deal with. And, you know, let me look at positive things where you can find them. But, you know, we Democrats, elected officials here locally really need to shine a light and let people know that, you know, we have other ways at doing things, and that we need to show them our platform, the Democratic platform, speak up locally when things are not going, or well, when things are going against our interests, which happen a lot, and pointing out what our local elected officials are doing down in Austin. So that is something that, you know, I'm gonna champion, letting them know that there are other ways of doing things, and the way we're going to accomplish those other ways of doing things it are is electing Democrats that represent us. You know, Brad Buckley position district was created for him. He's not representing the entire city of Killeen. He's only representing half of Killeen. If he would have been under representing the entire city of Killeen, he probably wouldn't be in office. So why are you afraid to represent the entire city? Is it because you're afraid you won't be able to get elected? Maybe. And that's why those maps were drawn the way that they were. Look it up and tell me if you think that's a fair map or not. So now let's circle back around to the agenda, and I'll mention a couple of things about our agenda and the item that I had placed on there to consider relocation of the Confederate statue to museum storage and replace it with the police memorial statue. And I got a couple of things to share with you on that. But this week, the Killeen Daily Herald posted an online poll on their website, and it states, the question is, do you think Commissioner Louis Minor is right to keep pushing for the removal or destruction of Bell County's Confederate soldier statue? And the options are: yes, a memorial to soldiers of the Confederacy has no place on county property. Option 2, yes, given the painful past associated with the Civil War, Minor's stance is correct. Item 3, no, removing the statute won't change history and the county should leave it alone. Item 4, no, perhaps putting the statue in a museum is okay, but destroying it is the wrong approach. And then the last option is 5, unsure. It's hard to say. There are strong feelings on both sides of this issue. So obviously we don't know how many people have voted on it. I'm looking at the results now, and item A, or item 1, 23.7% of respondents voted for that one. Item 2, 11.3% of respondents voted for that one. Item 3, 52.9% respondents voted for that one. Then 11.5% on 4 and 0.6% on the final one. So just in this impromptu poll that obviously you got to go to their website and pull up to get to, 52.9% of people, that majority is saying no, removing the statue won't change history. The county should leave it alone. But, it depends on who voted for that. Are the people that are being hurt, are the people that, it just depends on who the respondents are on that. So the event that I attended this week at the NAACP, a lot of people mentioned the statue to me, and they told me that, we're doing the right thing to keep bringing it up. And, I'm going to continue to do this. We need to come together. The commissioners need to realize that a lot of people are hurt by that statue. So I've heard almost zero options from the other commissioners. Any suggestions? Nothing has been mentioned from either one of them. The other 4, the other 3 commissioners, or the county judge. So, we need to do something. And I had mentioned last week that the estimate came back at $115,000 to remove the statue, relocate it. I'm prepared to raise that money. I'm going to start by the end of the month to do a fundraising drive, and we'll go from there. But we have to do something. So kind of what my battle rhythm has been on the statue is workshop, vote, regular agenda item. So kind of doing that. So last week I brought up the police memorial and its location, where it's at now, is not the ideal location. It was not where it was intended to be, its final place. So I brought it up last week in the workshop. They did discuss of the place that it should go, but I also thought that this would be a great opportunity to put it somewhere that it could be visible and prominent. And to me, it just made sense to, let's see if this is something that the commissioners would support, putting it and replacing it where the Confederate statue is, honoring the fallen law enforcement, local law enforcement. I think would be a great place for it on the courthouse grounds, the historic courthouse. They don't have any cases heard there it's an admin building in the commissioner's court. So we'll see if they're willing to do that. But after our workshop last week, and I had mentioned the two statues, an elected official, not a commissioner, another elected official, came up to me and was really upset about all the statues, about all the statues and why I keep bringing them up. And he said, Louis, why don't you just leave it the F alone? And yeah, I was a little surprised about that. That I thought he was professional, but I guess he was. Well, I'm not going to make any excuses for him. That wasn't professional. So, um, we got into a conversation about it, and he said, that statue's not bothering anyone. I told him he had mentioned something about Martin Luther King, and I told him, I said, well, do you think Martin Luther King would be okay with that statue there? And he looked at me with a straight face and said, yes, he believes Martin Luther King would be okay with that statue there. And I beg to differ. So, we ended that conversation there, and yeah, I was. I mean, it didn't bother me. Yeah, obviously, people are going to be heated on the other side that they don't think I'm doing the right thing, that I need to let it go, that, I don't have the support. So why do I keep on bringing it up? And, it's very simple that, as long as the decision makers, the other commissioners are complacent with that statue being there, I'm going to continue to figure out options on what it should do. Because leaving it there is not an option for me. It's not an option for many of my constituents. We do have other things that I want to be working on. So yeah, let's come together and get this thing moved. But I have had people reaching out to me saying that they want to support and come down and make their voices be heard. And so, yeah, I encourage people to do that. I hear it all the time. So, both for and against. So, it'll be there on Monday, and tune in, and we could go from there. And something that is a little off topic. It was in the editorial, the opinion piece this week, Sunday's paper for Killeen Daily Herald. It's what's taken the county so long to file a lawsuit over Prop A. And yeah, we haven't spoke about Prop A since my first podcast, really. But the reason is there's really nothing to report, no movement. I remember when they called that special meeting, both Henry Garza, the district attorney, and Jim Nichols, the county attorney, I believe they both said that, hey, we've already done a lot of legwork research on this topic, and even the paper said that the county attorney told the Herald on January 30th that he plans to file a suit within a week or two, but declined to elaborate. So, they kind of went into their thoughts about what's taking so long. But, the paper pointed out something that was obvious to me at the time, and it was obvious to me at the time, and I'm glad that the paper picked up on it, that they were in such a rush to have this special called meeting to have the county weigh in and authorize a lawsuit. But this is what the paper said, and this is a quote from that article. Of course, it is entirely possible that one of the reasons for the rushed approval for a county lawsuit was that a new commissioner, Louis Minor, was scheduled to take office on January 3rd. That's important because not only is Minor a backer of the marijuana ordinance, he was one of the petition organizers in both Killeen and Harker Heights. Had the subject of the lawsuit came up for a vote on the matter, after Minor took office, it is likely that he would have been a vocal opponent of the plan. And that is true. I'm still going to be a vocal opponent of the plan to waste money and suing the city of Killeen. But now that action has been done, I'm going to hold the elected officials in charge of doing it. I'm going to hold them accountable to the taxpayers' dollars, that we're not wasting funds doing this, that it's done in a timely and expedient manner. This decision to sue the city of Killeen, that train has left the station. So now we're going to have a court of competent jurisdiction come in and weigh in. And I think that that'll be an appropriate place for it now, now that this step has been taken. But yeah, no, I'm going to hold the county responsible, making sure that we're not wasting money, because that's my job, and making sure that it's not being drug out, because anyone, even a city, is afforded a fair and speedy trial, and that's what I'm going to be looking forward in our judicial system on this case, and supporting the will of the people. So on last week's workshop, we had our budget kickoff, and the county judge and the county auditor kind of discussed the process. There are several new elected officials, including myself, that'll be going through this process for the first time. And so it was interesting seeing all of the elected officials and their staff, department heads, come to the meeting or attend virtually online for the briefing. And something that kept on popping up is that was mentioned is the no new revenue tax rate, and what that means, and what does that mean for the county, what does it mean for the taxpayer, and we'll go from there. But before getting into the legal terms and definitions, just the first thing that pops in my head, and that I'll be looking for, is what is obviously last year's budget. If we did nothing except maintain where we're at, what would that cost this year versus last year? Then I would want to see what is the no new tax revenue rate. What is that dollar amount? Is that going to be enough to cover existing expenses? And then I would want to see what the maximum allowable tax increase prior to going to voter approved tax rate. So I believe the voter approved tax rate is at 3 to 3.5% in a given year. from the increase from last year. And so if that is the case, I would want to see what that number is. So what would be the maximum voter approval tax rate? What is the no new revenue tax rate? And then I would want to see if we give every department and every elected official what they're asking for, what would that cost be? Is it going to be in between the no new revenue tax rate and the voter approved rate? I think that would be ideal, and then we could, discuss going up if needed. I do know past couple of years that the county has done the no new revenue rate, so keeping costs low, keeping taxes low. But yeah, the judge did mention that he sees that it'll be difficult doing that this budget year. So a couple of factors that are going to be impacting that will be the new jail expansion coming online. I have 2 minimum security and a multi-floor jail unit coming on board. And I believe the sheriff said that's going to require 140, 150 new personnel. So that's going to be a significant cost to the county. And so, yeah, we'll see what it's not all going to happen in 1 year, obviously, one budget year. But I think that we need to start bringing people on board because they're going to have to hire. They can't hire 150 people all at once and start them all at once, get them trained all at once. I don't believe we have the capacity to do that. So we're going to have to bring them in, in 15 to 30 section hires at a time. So that's going to be a process to bring on that many people all at once. So that balancing act of the bringing them on board and getting them trained and ready to go once that new jail expansion comes online. So yeah, that'll be an interesting learning experience for all of us to see how the county does that, how the commissioner's court thinks on new equipment, on expansion, on new personnel, on pay, on vehicles. I'm really interested to see how the fellow commissioners, you can't stop growth. You can't be a hindrance to growth. So we have to meet the needs of the county, and more people is part of that process. So just as a reminder, this is the last week, the 17th of February, that someone can apply for their name to be placed on the ballot for city elections and school district elections here locally. Well, I think it's all over the state, but for here locally, that's what we're referring to. And it appears that I think almost every elected official here in the city of Killeen has an opponent. I haven't heard of a District 4 having an opponent yet. May or may not. We won't know. One hasn't filed, to my understanding, as of yet. But in Harker Heights, there's a lot of activity in Harker Heights. Multiple people has filed. There's 3 open seats. I believe the mayor's seat is open. District 2 and 4, or place 2 and 4, are open in Harker Heights. And yeah, there's a lot of names on the ballot over there. So we're obviously we, and I mean myself and some of the ground game people, we're gonna be in that race. We're gonna help out candidates that support Prop A, that support the voters, the will of the voters, and go from there. So, yeah, it'll be interesting once the filing deadline happens. And like I said, we will be active, very active in both Killeen and in Harker Heights. That's what the people require of us. I guess the last thing that we will talk about is also this week in the news, a state senator from Georgetown was arrested this week for a DWI in Travis County. Senator Charles Schwartner, and he's had a lot of scandals, bad news, I guess, about him. But this one was interesting. But it's funny how news gets around on the about other things. So obviously that news broke. They had his mug shot. It was on Twitter. It was on Facebook. So, being a political news junkie that I am, I was reading it. He even, came out and made a statement, said that he made poor choices. He was sorry to his constituents and his family, and he made a mistake. But reading through the comments, it always interests me. And there was a comment that someone said, "Hey, the law states for county commissioners that if you're drunk, that's how you could be removed from office," which I knew that. That's one of the ways to be removed from office is being drunk, and I'm sure a DWI or a PI is could be grounds for that. So they were like, why does a county commissioner, how can a county commissioner get removed for being drunk, getting a DWI, but a state senator, that requirement wasn't on them? But in those comments, someone had posted a link of a Hays County commissioner that got arrested for DWI in Austin. And this was, let's see, when did this happen? I'm looking it up, but I bring it up because when I went to my training back in January in Austin, or not in Austin, in Texas A&M College Station, I met this guy that I'm about to read this story about. It was Hays County Commissioner Walt Smith, and smart guy. You could tell he's very smart, had a lot of background in working in government in Washington, D.C., here in the state capital as well. And yeah, it was interesting. Like I said, I didn't know anything about him. As a matter of fact, when I spoke to him, he had mentioned, "Oh, you're from Bell County," and I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "I went to school with Commissioner Bobby Woodson," and he just spoke about that, and it was just interesting to me that hey, I guess it's a small world type of thing, but like I said, I didn't know about this. But yeah, here it is in the news that I found out that he was arrested for DWI, and I guess he took a plea deal and got out of that. But yeah, so I guess you can be a county commissioner and get drunk or a DWI, PI, or be a state senator, and you'll be okay. So Yeah, it was just interesting. Like I said, I didn't know anything about that. I still think he's a smart guy, and I think he's trying to do some things there. I mean, because we talked briefly, uh, but he was doing some things that you know that I support and I would do here in Bell County. So it was just, I guess, a coincidence, an observation that caught my attention during reading that story about Senator Schwartner. So with that, I'm gonna tell everyone again that if you want to listen to the commissioners' meeting, you don't have to drive and attend. It's available online, live, and it's also available archived, so you can go back and listen to it if you want. But I encourage you to get involved locally, get involved with your county government, listen, learn, speak, and we'll go from there. And with that, we are out of here.